Lucas's sci-fi fable.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. A Jedi. They're real.
The Force. It's calling to you.
Chewie. We're home.
I think we should start off, because people will be worried, to say that we will not spoil anything for you. I promise you. Absolutely. We'll just have to be very, very careful.
But then also imagine if we had to sit here and say that it was terrible. I know. Luckily, we don't, though.
Yeah.
I think, because it is splendid. And it's spectacular, you know, and it is this sort of foaming, frothing, vast whirlpool of fun. And I can't see why any fan would be disappointed. But I think more importantly than that, I think also there'll be grubby, snot-nosed 8 and 10 and 12-year-olds who also get brought along for the ride. And that is really important. I think that's more important than the fans. Because we were both veterans of playgrounds, you know, back in the 70s and the 80s. And actually, at that point, what made Star Wars everything that it wasn't the fact that our mums and dads were into it, it's that it meant such a lot to us. We were kids.
Yeah.
We loved it.
On the subject of grubby little offspring, we took ours and they loved it. I mean, we loved it. And I don't know whether you've read all the reviews, but Robbie Collin, who is a friend of the show, said that he cried 3 times. I mean, there were moments where I felt emotional, but then I looked at both our boys at the end who were, like, screaming, Mum, can we go again on Christmas Day?
I don't have kids, but I'm sure they would have cried had they existed. I thought it was just great from an action point of view.
Yeah.
It reminded me a bit of Mad Max Fury Road this year, a film that understands the power and the primacy of action. It's just out the blocks. There's not a lot of expository dialogue. The way J.J. Abrams uses the frame, it's just kind of... There's so much going on, and you always know where you are, where you stand. It's kind of great action directing and action storytelling. For the first 45 minutes, particularly, I think are spectacular.
It's great that there are, you know, gooey, gorgeous dollops of nostalgia kind of left, right and centre, and there's the moment the Millennium Falcon sputters back into life, and there won't be a dry middle-aged eye in the house. But I keep coming back to that idea that, you know, you can love the movie without reliving your childhood. You can just love it and be living your childhood, you know? Yeah,
well, you mentioned nostalgia, because I didn't know how much of my welling up... I mean, and we were, you know, with a bunch of people who should be sort of grumpy and, oh, come on, let's just go and watch it, i.e. journalists, and people were screaming and whooping, and the minute you hear the music, there is something so thrilling about that, and that is just nostalgia, isn't it? But there's a whole new crop in there.
He's very faithful to kind of the tone of episodes 4 and 5, you know, the first ones. But the casting director deserves a great deal of credit for bringing in such great new talent. I think John Boyega is absolutely fantastic. He kind of nails that hero/coward role. Daisy Ridley's great, and I think Adam Driver in particular deserves some credit, because he doesn't do that capital O odd acting that he does in other things we've seen. He brings some real pathos to the role.
Daisy, yeah, he's fantastic, but Daisy as well, she carries a lot of it.
And it's interesting, because John Boyega, I mean, we've seen John Boyega being fantastic in Attack the Block. Everyone who's watching should go and watch Attack the Block now, so we knew what he was capable of. But Daisy Ridley, I mean, she's done Casualty, she's done Silent Witness, and it's interesting to see her come out of the blocks and be so undaunted. You know, she's having a good time with it. You know, there's a scene where she's just like, she's running towards the camera with this huge tomboy grimace on her face, and you get out of the way, you know. It's interesting also, I think, for the more experienced actors, so someone like Domhnall Gleeson, because I think there's a particular knack to delivering this kind of dialogue. We had Harrison Ford was on the programme talking about that line about the fact that George Lucas could type the dialogue, but it's harder to say it. I think that's probably
lots of technical terms and...
Exactly, and so Domhnall Gleeson has to say, we're using the ventral cannons. And the ventral cannons are used. I hope that's not considered a spoiler. But he delivers it with, you know, he delivers it with connection. You know, he means it at that moment. I think that's the secret. I mean, what J.J. Abrams is doing here, I think it's interesting, is he's kind of swept the boards. He's erased from the past the prequels. No one is...
It's like they never happened.
No one is talking about the prequels at all. And George Lucas, I think, creatively, and I think this is what had to happen, George Lucas has kind of been taken to one side and put on the patio chairs with Jar Jar and just sort of left over there. And J.J.'s been left to do this incredible balancing act of old and new.
He makes it not just for super fans as well. I think you could come to this having not seen any of them before and still be entertained, certainly.
It's kept the kind of the meaning of Star Wars, though, which is nice as well, because obviously you've got this billion-dollar kind of CGI spectacle going on, but there's also a slight, and I mean this in the best sense, there's a slight creakiness going on as well, which is what the original Star Wars had. So you still feel that for all the money and all the expectation, there's like an old dude in a tank top.
And there's really
something in a string.
Chunky design and the art design and the production design.
The art design's fantastic. I know. I after watching it, I thought I must get a lunchbox, forgetting I was 43. Next is Joy, Jennifer Lawrence.